okay?
Mayor Giuliani is considered one of the most successful United States attorneys in history, serving as United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York from 1983 through 1989, gaining international praise for his relentless pursuit of organized crime and public corruption. You know what that's all about. He served as mayor of New York City. He was my mayor of New York City from 1993 through 2001, where he spearheaded crime reduction, revitalized the city, and comforted the nation following the terrorist attacks of September 11th. He went on to manage one of the largest security consulting firms in the world, and most recently, he served as President Trump's personal attorney. Mayor Giuliani's success as a public servant, where he impacted the lives of millions, solidified his legacy as one of the most consequential public figures in American history. Now he's hosting 2 hit live stream shows every night from 7 to 9 p.m. This one, the Rudy Giuliani Show, on X and on Newsmax 2, and also on Lindell TV at 7 p.m. Everybody, welcome. Please join us in welcoming Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're
Thank
going to let Mayor Giuliani talk about whatever he feels like talking about tonight. And in a little while, we'll start taking questions from the audience, Mayor, that you can answer, okay?
I will absolutely enjoy doing that. I enjoy taking questions more than speaking because I know what I'm going to say, but I don't know what you're going to ask me. So it's a lot more informative. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the club. And let me tell everyone who's watching it that we're in the Trump International Golf Course in West Palm Beach, and we're in the room that is used often for, well, I guess the biggest event here recently was the Super Bowl, right? But also on Sunday nights during the season, there's a dinner here, and when the president is in town, he attends. And then on the other side is the golf course, which is magnificent. So I really thank you very much. This venue means a lot to me also. Also, I want to thank you because all of you were very active in the election for quite some time. You worked very, very hard on it. This was an effort that involved lots of people, lots of dedicated people. And the reason we won is because we had more dedicated people than they did. Politics in America is so close now in terms of the division that the more enthusiasm you have, well, that's going to probably make the difference. And that's what he always had. And by him, I mean the president. President Trump always had the enthusiasm edge, even in the election that they say he lost. The enthusiasm in 2020 was remarkable. Even going down to the last 2 weeks before the election, I don't know if you remember, they both went to Pennsylvania, and Biden went to his hometown, and about 23 people showed up at a broken down old drive-in movie. And about half of them were beeping their horns. And Dodo, that's what I call the former president, Dodo thought that they were beeping their horns, in support of him. But they were actually Trump supporters who were beeping their horns so nobody would hear him. And but he was very excited, and I'm sure the first stepmother, his wife, she basically told him that was Joe. They really love you. I don't know, in retrospect, if we realize the fraud that they perpetrated on us. Oh, the frauds, plural. put the election counting aside, even put aside the hard drive, which they hid. What about the fact that he was completely non-compass menace in one of the most, or the most important job in the world? I mean, the man has a button that would allow him to destroy the world. And I can tell you, having worked for President Ronald Reagan, the greatest fear that he had was that if that button ever got into the hands of an irrational person. And today, I don't know if you heard President Trump's press conference, but I thought it was one of the most eloquent and one of the wisest observations about the position the world is in that I've heard since Ronald Reagan or John Kennedy, because they were the two presidents that seemed to me understood the danger of the world we live in. They both were consumed with the fear that we could destroy the world. And President Reagan would express it this way. By the time he came into office, here's how we kept the peace. Mutually assured destruction, also known as MAD. Mutually assured destruction meant that we weren't going to go to war against Russia, because if we did, they would go to war against us, and they wouldn't go to war against us because we would go to war against them, and the end result is we'd all be dead. The world would be over. Well, as President Reagan used to say, that first of all seems like a horribly immoral way to keep the peace. It certainly doesn't have you on a high plane thinking about all the wonderful things you can do to make the world better, if basically you're keeping it together by extraordinary fear. But even worse than that, that all falls apart if one of those two men is irrational or insane. Then the world is gone. Have you ever taken a good look lately at the Ayatollah? It kind of fits that category to me, right? He convinces people that if they give their life for the jihadist cause, they're going to go to paradise. He is an extremely orthodox Muslim, which means he believes in the most rigid interpretation of the Quran, which is that if you die in pursuance of trying to create an Islamic empire, you go straight to paradise, where you are greeted by, depending on your interpretation of the language, 72 or 79 virgins. Now, there are two problems with that. Basically, half of us are men and half of us are women. Kind of a little strange. All the men are going to get 72 virgins. I don't know where they're going to come from. And as Saturday Night Live once observed, nobody has ever told the men what these 72 virgins look like. But, finally, did you ever consider that over the last year and a half, Israel done a pretty good job of killing a lot of these jihadists, right? They've been wiping them out left and right in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, even a little bit in Iran, down in Yemen. Probably not too many left. So I don't know if the Ayatollah, I don't know if he wants to die, but he certainly is irrational. And I think that's why every president, except for Obama and Biden, would say, under no circumstances should Iran become nuclear. It is different when you are a insane, theocratic cult, which is what they really are. Iran is run it's run by a religious ideology, which is equally, it's as evil as Nazism or communism. It is as anti-Semitic as Nazism. and maybe even more in the sense that it's a tenet of the religion. If you read it that way, that Muhammad instructed them to kill Jews. He instructed them to kill Christians because there were two Muhammads. The early Muhammad, which they love to quote and talk about, where he talks about how it's a continuation of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and then the Muslim religion. And then after Muhammad had his revelation from the angel Gabriel, who took him to heaven, or paradise, they call it, he came back and he tried to convince the people of Medina that they should convert to his new religion, which was the completion of Judaism and Christianity. Now, they didn't believe him. His Arab brothers and sisters thought he was possessed by the devil. Now, that may be true, but actually he had epilepsy. And of course, they didn't understand epilepsy in that day. So as he was preaching, he would have an epileptic seizure, and they would say, of course, we're not going to follow you. Plus, they had a hard time believing that the angel Gabriel took him to heaven. Then he, having not succeeded with the Arabs, he either went to the Jews or the Christians next. I don't remember exactly the order, but the end result was the same. They rejected him. He thought for sure that he was going to convince the Jews and the Christians that this was a perfect completion of their. Instead, they thought he was also insane. And the Arabs threw him out because he was a troublemaker. They threw him out of Medina and they threw him out into the desert. And he spent 20 years in the desert preaching to the uneducated, illiterate Bedouin who didn't reject it. They bought it. And they weren't going to let him back in any of the cities, so he developed an army. And he became a general. He became a terrorist general. Killed thousands and thousands of people, would go into a town, kill the elders to get the attention of the town, and then force you to be Muslim. That's how the religion was spread. It's the reason Salman Rushdie, almost was killed. That trial is going on right now. So that's the reality of it, and that's the world that we live in. So President Trump today, I would urge you to go listen to his press conference today. In a very, very serious way, talked about how much responsibility is on him, Putin, and to some extent, Chairman Xi, because they are, certainly he and Putin, whether Xi has nuclear weapons that could destroy the world, he sure as heck could get us pretty close to that. And that somehow we got to figure out how to settle these wars. And then we got to move on to figuring out how we get rid of nuclear weapons. Last person who talked about that was Ronald Reagan. Person before that was John Kennedy. The rest of them weren't big enough to talk about. By big enough, I mean they were not intellectually or morally big enough to talk about. A job like president or a job like mayor or can have you become, even if you're good at it, an automaton. You do whatever has to be done that day, and you get through it. And then if you like parties and you like, you spend all your time doing that. Or it can be a mission where you superimpose on it what your vision is and what you want it to be. That's what creates a leader. And I'm really distinguishing between an average or pretty good president and a great one. We have a great president. And even though I don't know how to evaluate this, and this is a very, I think it's a helpful evaluation, although somewhat unrealistic. I think a lot of people feel that although we went through terrible, terrible 4 years, and there was no assurance that it would work out right until it happened, that it actually worked out better, that he's better prepared, that the country is better prepared for him too. I think all of that's right. Very hard to evaluate, though, because an awful lot of people died that didn't have to die had he been elected in 2020. When he says that the war in Ukraine would not have taken place, that's almost obvious. He pointed it out today very quickly, but I've pointed it out over and over again, which is that Putin attacked 3 times under the last 4 presidents. Bush in southern Russia, Georgia. Obama when he took Crimea. And then, of course, under Biden. Somebody's missing there. The 4 years of Trump. And I think in order to be a troublemaker, Putin actually pointed that out recently and actually said, no, I didn't attack when Trump was there. There's a reason for that, and you have to try to understand Putin if you're going to negotiate and deal with him. Putin is as evil as you can imagine. He's a stone cold killer. But he's an extraordinarily smart man. He's a great tactician. And believe it or not, he's a very careful man. He's not he's not like Hitler, who may have been insane also. I don't think you'd have Putin, creating a 2-front war when he's got Europe under control and then he decides to attack Russia. Putin is a very cautious, careful man. And that's why he attacked when he did. He attacked under Bush in Georgia because Bush at the time was very weakened by all of the people who turned against him because of the Iraq war. We won the war, we won it quickly, and then we lost the occupation. And he became very unpopular, whether fair or unfair. He was a weakened president. And when he made a switch between his first and second term, he created a weaker administration, weaker in terms of militarily prepared to defend us, somewhat more hesitant about it. So he noticed that, Putin did. He also noticed that Bush was very distracted by all of that. And his action in Georgia would have been hard for us to really contest very heavily because it is internal. And he did have a significant Islamic extremist problem in southern Georgia. Remember, they killed they destroyed an entire school of Russian children, and that whole area, which is where the Boston Marathon bombers came from, is a hotbed of Islamic extremism that he has to deal with. So that was a questionable one as to whether there was any basis for us to really intervene in that. Obama, he waited really until Obama proved to him that he would. I'm not sure Obama would have defended America under any circumstances or for any reason. I have a horrible view of Obama. I think Obama was a trained communist and was put there to accelerate what a certain portion of the Democrat Party has been wanting to do to us since Woodrow Wilson, which is to make us a communist country. And he was probably the one most aware of it and trained for that purpose. and he subscribes to the form of communism, the revised form of communism, where Marx and Engels created a division based upon rich and poor, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. It was all over money, and they tried to spread it in the West that way. But it was very, very hard. In America, we just don't have, even during the Depression, we don't have that kind of poverty. We have poverty, but compared, as any of you who have traveled the world, compared to the poverty in India or in parts of China or in Africa. In fact, the only place in our hemisphere that has that kind of poverty is Haiti. Some brilliant Marxists decided, under the direction of a professor named Gramsci, who was Italian and American and was at Columbia, that they should use race as the dividing line, and then even better, oppressed and oppressor. Biden's form of communism is colonizer. Remember when he first came into the White House, he got rid of Winston Churchill's bust. Now, I wanted to, if he wasn't the president, I'd have gone there and hit him in the head with the bust, because he is one of my great heroes. And I don't think we would have negotiated our way through that war without him, more so than any of our leaders. But in any event, he got rid of that because Churchill was a colonist. Yeah, he saved the Western world, but he was a colonist. But Obama has no appreciation for the Western world because communists don't. It was a sure sign that he was a very well-trained communist. In fact, his book about his father is written by a communist. So Putin looked at him and said, there's a president he's not going to do anything. It was a very safe invasion. And then, of course, he did the same thing with Biden. Problem for President Trump now is it's been done. If you were going to stop them from taking significant part of Ukraine, you had to do it before they came in. We had to make a decision back then, was it worth committing our troops at the border to stop them, or NATO, or not? Having come in, or we should have given them the arms they needed to expel them at the beginning of the war. I don't have an answer for precisely what the Biden administration was doing in Ukraine. On the one hand, they were going to defeat Russia, stop Russia, not let them spread, and save the Ukrainian people. At the same time, they never gave them the weapons to do that. By the way, Obama didn't either. When Russia invaded in 2014, he actually never gave them weapons. First person to actually give them weapons was Donald Trump. I was told that by the president of Ukraine, who was a massive crook, but an angry massive crook. So there's a very strange thing going on, which makes settling it very difficult. So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to tell you how I think it's going to get settled. And then you can ask me questions. Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal, 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order...
Well, welcome back to America's Mayor Live, which is being brought to you from Palm Beach, Florida, at the Trump International Golf Course. And this is a meeting of the America First Club. Rebecca Harari and Lauren Malice are the executives of the club that put this together and figured out how we could do both at one time. So I'm going to finish what I was saying so we can get to questions and answers that will, satisfy what you're most interested in. In addition to having, I mean, it's amazing. This weekend, he has a whole large number of his foreign policy staff trying to deal with Ukraine. I think that'll be in Munich. They're going to be doing that. And then I think he's going to go to a meeting in Saudi Arabia next week. And at the same time, Saturday is an extraordinarily important date because he told Hamas that they better return all of the hostages by then, or there's going to be hell to pay. And then Netanyahu backed that up and said, I agree with him. And Netanyahu has already put troops right on the border, and they're ready to go in. So Saturday we could be back into a war, a very, very escalated war against Hamas that should have been fought that way from the beginning. And I think Bibi didn't because of all of the constraints that were put on him by Biden. So everything that I hear is that Hamas is not going to return the hostages, and I think some of this was accelerated by, I'm not sure, but I think when he was coming back from the Super Bowl on Sunday night, they showed him the pictures of the 3 hostages that were just released. And one of them in particular looks like something out of the 1940s Holocaust. And I don't know if it was only the New York Post, but the New York Post had a picture of the man taken about 4 days before he was taken by those animals. And he was a kind of a heavy man, not healthy, heavy man. And he looks like a skeleton now, from those horrible pictures that we remember, if you've ever been to Yad Vashem and then when you look at the others now, you realize it wasn't just him. Well, they kept this man for 400 straight days in a tunnel, and they fed him every 3 days. So when he saw that, I think he said what I think he would have done if he were president when this happened, which is you don't negotiate with him, you tell them what to do. You tell them you're going to give us all those hostages or you're not going to be around to talk about it after. None of you, your entire nation, is not going to be around because you're a bunch of terrorists anyway. Look, don't get liberal squishy on the Palestinians. Every single one of them is trained to kill you in school based on texts that were given to them by the United Nations. It's extraordinary that we pay for it. We pay through UNRWA for the texts that say, kill the Jews. It's not just eliminate Israel. It's complete union with Hitler. Remember, the Grand Mufti of that area was a good friend of Hitler's. The Muslims, even the not so extreme Muslims, are infected with a very, very deep, vicious form of anti-Semitism. And even if they're not part of Hamas, they want to kill the Jews. Oh, and then of course that's always followed by death to America. And they have killed enormous numbers of Americans. Arafat alone kills scores and scores of Americans. So I think there's no doubt that they're going to follow through and eliminate Hamas. I would personally like to see them attack Iran and take out the nuclear facilities, because I think Israel, and I have to believe that we're going to eventually do it, because I don't think Trump would have given Israel the bombs that Biden had held back, the bunker busting bombs that go deeper into the earth, that make it possible to take out their new facilities. Don't think he would have put it in Bibi's hands if he didn't. Maybe he wants them to do it, and we'll support them, and we'll be there if there are any repercussions. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to do it, but you're not going to have peace in the Middle East until you get rid of the Ayatollah, because he'll undermine any peace. The Islamic Republic of Iran is dedicated to the elimination of the state of Israel as a political matter and as a religious matter. It's almost a basic of their constitution. So he wants to create peace in the Middle East, and I think he's gotten into it deep enough. He knows that. And exactly how he handles it, what he does first and second. I personally don't think the Ayatollah will be with us next year at this time. Finally, if you want to ask questions, I would like you to ask me about the constitutional crisis we're going through now, where the liberal judges have decided that we don't have a chief executive. Somehow, Hamilton and Madison, and they all thought they created an executive branch of the government. Hamilton in the Federalist paper number 70 said the executive has to be very strong and very powerful, and it's the only way to protect us against corruption. But the executive can't do audits. He can't find out. He can't find out. He can't find out that USAID put one of the advisors to the 9/11 terrorists through college. America paid for his education. He can't find out. Oh, and they made a terrible Musk. That guy Musk is really stupid, I'll tell you. But they found out that $50 million was spent on condoms for Iraq. What a liar. It was spent for condoms for Mozambique. That makes it right. Now, I prosecuted enough cases to tell you they did not buy 50 million condoms. That's more than the population of Mozambique. They didn't buy 50 million condoms from Mozambique. Here's what we used to call it when I was an assistant U.S. attorney. They whacked the money up. Nobody got any condoms. Crooks and that. And I'll finish by telling you the hopefully future congressman's question. The reason why the budget of Florida is $120 billion, and the budget of New York is $254 billion, and Florida has what, about 8 million more people. So your budget should be higher than ours, and ours is two plus times yours, is because we steal the money. We steal it. That money is inflated so that it goes through things that sound wonderful, like not-for-profits. Not-for-profits in New York are more crooked than any business that you ever met, because the guy's wife and the guy's political, this one and the son, and the contracts are absurd. And what Musk and his people are seeing is not incompetent. Yeah, sure, there's some incompetence in government, but most of it is corruption. And the reason it's a fight to the death is the guys fighting him the most are the ones making the money. I mean, you look at a black area that's falling apart. 8 out of 10 of them have a congressman who's a multimillionaire, and enough money has gone into that area to make it Monaco. I mean, if they ever spent all the money that went into Harlem on Harlem would be like Dubai. But Charlie Rankin did most of it. I could tell you the same thing in Baltimore if you want, or almost all of these phonies, like Waters, and she's a multi-millionaire. So the man is doing the work of God that had to be done. I know for years, Republican would say, "I'm going to go after the fraud, waste, and abuse," and then none of them do it. Well, this guy's rich enough; he doesn't give a damn. And I love that he's crooked. What the hell would he have to be crooked for?
What if you ask whatever questions you would like to ask? So,
Maybe we are ready for questions?
yes.
David here. David?
Thank you for being here. I wanted to ask, what was your first thoughts when you got the call on 9/11 power?
Well, I was having breakfast at the Peninsula Hotel, which is about 50 floors in Manhattan, I don't know if you know. And I was having a more leisurely breakfast than normal because it was primary day in New York. Republican and Democratic parties were holding these primaries for the citywide election to take place in November. I was determined, and I was having dinner breakfast with my chief counsel, Dennis Inman, and one of the best friends. And with Bill
Best
Simon,
friends. And with Bill
who just
Simon,
was involved in the fire.
who just
in
was involved
California,
in the fire in
who wanted to
California,
run
the
for
poor
governor.
guy, who wanted to run for governor of California. Eventually did, almost won. He's the son of Secretary of Energy and Secretary of Treasury Simon, who worked for Nixon and Ford. And we were talking about his running for governor. I was giving him advice because I didn't think I would have any real work until about 4 o'clock, because it was primary day. And then everybody would be claiming that the other guy was cheating. That happens in New York all the time. In New York, even in an election that is a definite win for the Democrats, they cheat in order to stay in shape. So, you know, they don't want to lose the edge. So even though they know they're going to win by, 70-30, they'll cheat for an extra 10% just in case they have to do it. It's like not as bad as Philadelphia, though.
We have another question for you.
This is one of our exclusive members.
This is one of our exclusive members, Maria Mom.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Giuliani, for being here. Excuse my accent. I'm Lebanese.
Thank you.
Of Lebanon. So, given your strong stance on national security and counterterrorism, you spoke about Hamas. Need to know, I'm a freelancer, I'm a journalist, I work for, okay, one question. How President Trump will play a big role in defeating Hamas? The hostages is a big problem, and we need to know how we can do a collaboration with UAE, Saudi Arabia, and we are expecting a meeting to get rid of the Iranian influence.
Could you please could you repeat that? Just
She wants to know how you feel.
please just repeat it. Just repeat it. No, I heard it. No, have the Rebecca. Just summarize the question. Just
She really wants to know what you feel.
About how we can deal with Iran and Hamas.
Oh, okay.
Hamas to get the hostages out.
I think he thinks. Yes. Okay. I think that he believes that his options are limited by certain things. He is not going to. He and Bibi could get the hostages out if they agreed to allow Hamas to have a role in a future Gaza. That would be like allowing the Nazis to have a role in a future Germany. That would be insane. So there are options that are cut off. And I am sure, and I know he agrees with that. So, yeah, and I think that's the only way you're going to get Hamas to voluntarily give up the hostages.
Okay, we have another question.
So the option that he's going to use and hope that it works is that he's going to destroy them. There's not going to be a Hamas anymore.
God willing.
And they will, if you tell the Mossad there won't be a Hamas, there won't be Hamas. they'll go find them wherever they got to find them. I mean,
Okay, another question for you, Mayor. This is Edie Stiglitz. She has a question.
Okay, so nice to see you again. Former New Yorker, 15 years, now Florida resident, 4 years. I'm head of the Blue State Refugee Committee. Question is, you've done this before in New York. Do you think it will happen again? Will we see that bounce back? Will we see iconic New York City again? And how will that happen?
well, I think so. I mean, cities, New York is, New York has certain things that are just built into it that make it a great city. Sometimes greater than others, sometimes safer than others, but it's a hard city to avoid. It's probably the most famous city in the world. So 30 years ago, you could say absolutely, because it was the financial capital of the world. Now, finance is this. I don't know if there's a financial capital of the world now. The internet is the financial capital of the world, right? And maybe even more if we go in that direction. But I mean, it's all a question of political choices. Why is New York the way it is? Because for 150 years, New York is a crooked democratic dictatorship, with a few exceptions. The few times that a Republican or independent were elected. So that would be LaGuardia and me and Bloomberg in modern times. And you go back into the 19th century, you had reform movements. Like Ed Koch should be also an example of a Democrat when they had a reform movement in the Democrat Party. Nowadays, there is no reform movement in the Democrat Party. It's controlled by whoever says the craziest thing because they all agree with it or they keep their mouth shut. I don't understand it completely. I don't understand how intelligent people can sit by and allow AOC and the one who was married to her brother to come into the country and these. Yeah. I don't understand how they can do that. I mean, I've known Chuck Schumer forever, and his wife worked for me. And I consider him, I'm not Jewish, but I feel a great affinity to Israel and the Jewish people. I feel like he's a traitor to his own people.
Thank you so much.
You know what would have happened to him? You know what would happen to him if he was an Italian?
This is one of our newest exclusive members, Mary L. Bernhardt. Hola.
So, Mayor, what do you think is going to be the future of the Canada now? As Canadians, we're not quite sure what's going to happen. It's not clear. That's the question. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I can tell you what I hope happens. We kick China out. They don't belong there. It clearly violates the treaty. The amazing thing when Donald Trump said these things, of course, they thought he was crazy when he said, we should take over the canal because it's hurting the United States. We should take over Denmark. We should take over Greenland from Denmark because it needs to be defended. Now, do you know Truman wanted to take Greenland? Yeah, and so did Roosevelt during the Second World War. In fact, we occupied Greenland during the Second World War. And then when we gave it back, Truman wanted to buy it. So all of a sudden, it's like when all the Democrats were in favor of putting up a wall to stop illegal immigration, Schumer and Pelosi. And I mean, I have all their tapes. We have to have a wall. We have to have a wall. Then Trump says we have to have a wall. That's xenophobic. Lucky I don't know what xenophobic means, but I think it's bad.
Okay, we have one last question from my favorite co-president, Lauren.
So, Mr. Mayor, if you could give anybody that's running for office a piece of advice right now, like with that speed, whatever, maybe, what would you say?
I would tell them, make sure your attitude in running for office is correct. That you're doing it in order to do the best job you can do for the people. That you're not doing it because you want to be important. Because you're really not that much more important than anybody else. And if you think you are, there's probably something wrong with you. You're not going to make any money doing it unless you want to go to jail, I hope. Unless you're a Democrat, then you don't go to jail.
Are you being a Democrat?
But I mean, I think that's what's missing now. I remember when if I go back to the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, so I was mayor. I was U.S. attorney in the 80s and mayor in the 90s. And there were lots of Democrats that I could work with, and I could appeal to them based on what's best for the country or what's best for the city. And sometimes I would have to modify my position, or they would, trying to figure that out. That's almost a useless conversation now with most Democrats because they're so afraid of the radicals in the party. And it's probably a useless conversation with a third of the people in our party. It's become a completely selfish endeavor, driven by the desire for personal power, glory, and unfortunately, money, greed. And we got to get it out. It has to be driven a lot more by idealism, meaning a Democrat and a Republican should be able to sit down and talk out, how do I solve this in the best interest of the United States? So what time is it, Ted?
8:55.
What?
We're going to take a quick break and come back and wrap things up. 8:55.
Oh,
Okay, we
okay.
have 4 minutes left of the show. It's probably a 1 or 2 minute break.
We'll take a 1 or 2 minute break, but you can continue to ask me questions. I mean,
Okay.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans. No Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
there may be as many as 80 that he put in cities all over the country. A couple are Republicans, but they're almost all Democrats. I believe that was a very deliberate plot because he did essentially the same thing in Eastern Europe, which I...
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans. No Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order.
If you look at his DAs, records set for homicide in Philadelphia, St. Louis, Rochester, New York, Chicago, you don't have to set a record. I mean, Chicago, every weekend is a question of, is it 5 people killed or 20? And is it 20 people wounded or 100? And they don't do a damn thing about it. But Chicago hasn't had a non-Democrat mayor in 70 years. And then they not only vote for the Democrat mayor, they vote for the worst one. The last election, they picked, of all the people on the list of Democrats, they picked the guy that was totally crazy. This is the guy who blamed Nixon for poverty. Nixon is the reason for poverty. So, Rebecca?
Yep. Hi.
How are you?
I'm fantastic.
So
you
what?
are awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for being here
Thank you.
tonight.
This is very, very enjoyable.
We are blown away by everything you are talking about. We agree with everything. You're really awesome. All I want to say is my husband and I, we raised our children in New York. We got married in New York, raised our children in New York. By the time 9/11 happened, we had 6 children already. Our baby
God bless you.
Our baby was 6 months old. And I remember thinking, first of all, of course, it was horrible. And we even knew some people who perished in 9/11. But I also had this feeling that, you know what, we're going to be okay because our mayor is Mayor Giuliani.
Oh, thank you.
And really, I mean that. I really do. You know, we had...
Well, that's so nice. Thank you.
What New York City was when you were mayor, boy, I mean, you got rid of, I think, like the mafia. You got rid of all.
You know, there's an article in the paper, the Post has 2 articles today, and you should read them. One, there's a mafia guy who I guess is sentenced or something. And no, he's a Sicilian mafia guy that was caught on tape. And he's complaining that they don't get good people anymore. And that they're not as good as the other organized crime groups because the quality of their recruits has gone down. He's got a morale problem like the military. I wonder if the mafia has gone, I was thinking, I wonder if they've gone woke.
Well,
the second one is an article about how people don't recognize how much Trump has elevated children and they were talking about that beautiful ceremony when he signed the men shouldn't participate in women's sports, or you shouldn't go in the ladies' room. I think my father told me that when I was about 2. You know, you don't go in the ladies' room. But and it was so beautiful the way those children interacted, and you couldn't help but think of how the kids used to be frightened, like particularly little girls were frightened like hell of that pervert that was there. I mean, smelling their hair, touching them. How about when he said, "I used to like it when I was in the pool and the little children would touch my hair on my leg." Oh, God Almighty! So I think that it's a beautiful article, about, and then they talk about how Musk had the kid with him, who reminded me a little of Andrew, who's not here. Who reminded me of Andrew at my inauguration.
Yes, I
who
remember
ran
that.
around and did all kinds of crazy things. And then they talked about how many that Vance has brought his kids with him on the trip to wherever they're going. And then the Secretary of Transportation, Duffy, Sean Duffy, who I campaigned for. I know him from way back in 2010 when he ran, and at that point they had 6 kids. Now they have 11, and they had them all. They had them all at the swearing in, and Trump took pictures of every single one of them. And I know because I've known him for 40 years, and I spent every day with him for 6 months or 5 months in 2016, from about April until the election. I traveled with him every day. And it was my job to cut down on his tweeting. I did a good job, huh? But the reality is, I came to believe after a while that plus and minus, the tweeting was plus. And now it's much better. But like what he did today, when the hell has an American president ever explained himself to the people that he's governing the way he does? I mean, even Kennedy and Reagan, who were great communicators, they had much more formal. I mean, he's like your pal or friend or enemy, but he tells you what he thinks. He even changes his mind in front of you.
Yeah, it's very transparent.
That's exactly what a democracy should be. I mean, the press conference today was remarkable. I also think it got to the level of wisdom about nuclear war. And you can see how strongly he feels about it. You can see that he's a man with a conscience, because you can see that the weight of being able to destroy the world, he feels it. He feels it. And I worked for Ronald Reagan, and he felt it. He didn't like it, and he felt it. And if you listen to Kennedy's early speeches, you can see and they're the only 3 presidents who, the others probably did, but the only 3 that I remember really expressing it. And you want a president who has that, because it could destroy us.
Well, you know, you were a wonderful mayor. And if you think about what mayors after you have done to our poor city, New York City, de Blasio and now this Adams, we have the highest crime ever. There's pot in the streets, homeless people sleeping in the streets, migrants sleeping in the streets, or taking up all of our hotel space. I mean, it's just an absolute, absolute.
And it's beyond it's beyond liberal, conservative, Republican. Like Bloomberg did a good job, and Bloomberg. I mean, I disagreed with Bloomberg on a lot of liberal policies. I call them nanny state policies. You know, he didn't want people to get big sodas, and he banned smoking cigar. Howard, he banned smoking cigars in Central Park. I was in Central Park once smoking a cigar, and a cop came up to me. He said, "Mayor Giuliani, you can't smoke a cigar here." I said, "There's a guy over there smoking marijuana." He said, "Yeah, but you can't smoke a cigar." But he fundamentally was a good mayor on the big things. So I don't get upset about the little things. Look, we can disagree on taxes. We can disagree on nanny state. But he kept the city safe. He kept it fiscally sound, and he wasn't a crook. And
what do you say about the mayors since then? Well, especially de Blasio.
De Blasio was, I think most people would say, like Biden, it's almost clear, at least in our lifetime, there hasn't been a worse mayor. He was terrible. Yes. He was a terrible mayor, like Biden. Biden didn't do anything right. He seemed like if there's a wrong decision, he'd make the wrong decision.
Well, I agree with Rebecca, because when I worked for Governor Pataki and Ambassador Gargano, you were our mayor. We worked on so many initiatives together.
Fabulous.
42nd Street, as I mentioned before, Queens West, Hudson River Park, and your team was phenomenal. And you were phenomenal. You made New York great.
Well, thank you. But Governor Pataki.
Yes, he was.
I'll tell you one of the advantages that I had that he didn't have, and he still did a great job. I had so people say to me, how did you lower taxes and do workfare and get 500,000 people off welfare? You had a city council of 45 Democrats and 6 Republicans, like George had a Democratic legislature.
Yeah.
Except I had a city council speaker who was a very, very fine man, Peter Vallone. He was a very, very honest, very religious man, went to church every day, and it wasn't pious. It was like inside him. He was a Democrat. His wife voted for me. His wife was a Republican. He was a Democrat, one of the most powerful Democrats in the city. But I could do what I just told you. I could sit with him, and the first day that I was mayor, I walked into his office, and I knew him, but I said, I'm going to introduce myself again to you, Peter. We're going to have to work together. He said, no mayor has ever come in here before. They're too important to come in here. I said, well, I'm not too important because I only got 6 members and you got 45. I want to be your friend. And what I recommend doing is we meet every week and we figure out what we can do. And we put aside what we can't do. And after we do all the things we can do, we'll start working on the things we can't do. He said, that's good because my wife voted for you and she doesn't want me to give you a hard time. And we started doing that. And without him, there's a lot of things I wouldn't have done. On the other hand, George had probably the most crooked Shelley Silver.
Oh, gosh.
The most crooked, dishonest, creepy bum that ever lived. Yeah. He was a politician that lied to you personally.
Right.
As well as stole money. I mean, if they steal money, I don't like it. I put them in jail. But don't lie to me personally.
Whatever happened to him? Yeah.
I mean, a lot of crooked politicians, at least
forever.
Will keep their word. They'll keep their word among politicians. But he would lie like crazy.
Yes.
And there was a point at which George couldn't meet with him anymore.
Right.
I mean, he wanted to punch him in the head.
If you could give any advice to the current New York City mayor, Mayor Adams, regarding
what to do,
the horrible deteriorating state of New York City, what would you tell him?
You know what he lacks? Guts.
And a moral compass.
Yeah. He has the right ideas most of the time. Like if you just ask him a question, he has common sense, and he has mostly the right ideas. But then almost all the right ideas, because the city's in such terrible shape, there's some special interest group blocking it, and then he'll cave. School choice, right? So 72% of the black people in New York City support school choice. We don't have school choice because of the teachers union. Right. Because 90% of the black politicians in the city vote against school choice because they get their money from the teachers union. And as a party,
Randy Weingarten.
Yeah.
Randy Weingarten is an absolute communist. I negotiated with her. I negotiated for 6 years. She's an absolute 100% communist. And if you really start arguing with her, you can get her to admit it. Mm-hmm. And the union was started by communists. The teachers union is a union that was started by the Communist Party. And the purpose of it was to get control of the schools, to brainwash them, make them a little Marxist. And they've done a hell of a job. A lot of work to be done. But the most wonderful thing is, he's just going right at it, going right after every single one of these things. Sometimes when somebody gets elected, there's it almost seems like he's been in office a year with a number of things that he's done.
Mayor, please allow us, coming to the end of the show, please allow all of us to thank you for all you have done for New York, for America, for our values. And we want to thank you truly for all you have given us, and on behalf of America First Club and on behalf of everybody here and everyone listening, thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you. So are we still on, Ted? So we'll say, so I will thank everyone that was listening. I hope you got a chance that we showed some pictures of the room. I hope you got a chance to see how beautiful the Trump International Golf Course is and how beautiful these people are. Because I bet most of you agree with them, right? So let's all say, God bless America!
God bless America.
Oh, wow! It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able